Thank you. I think we might have a couple of questions.
Quick questions. One is Cincinnati, in the terms of that commission, is there a set of prints in Cincinnati that live on, that project has on their life? In a public collection?
The Cincinnati Art Museum bought a set, yeah.
And then the second question is, you're such a great book maker in the books that you make at Charles Lane. I wonder if you think about books as the final format. Is that your preferred final format for your work? You're also a bookmaker, not only of your own work, but of other artists as well.
I do. I mean, I've been drawn to the photography book, since I was a student, and I do often think about my projects living in book form. But I show a lot of my work on the web, and I think that is, for a lot of people, a perfectly accessible and democratic way in which to see something. So photography or any art form, and some projects I have a lot of things going at the same time. So, and I don't think every project I ever have done and spent years doing will necessarily make it into a book form. So, and I want those to live somewhere. So yes and no. I mean, I love books, and the reason why I started the publishing company was because it was such a dream come true for me to have a book made of my work that I wanted to, because I had the opportunity to give that opportunity to someone else. I wanted to try and do that. And in the end, the economics of publishing weren't there, and I'm no longer doing doing Charles Lane Press, but it was definitely a wonderful experience to work with other people and put their work out there too. Yes?
What the people's hands were interesting. The faces are just the faces. But
We can hear you.
they didn't. How often did they do something with their hands automatically that wound up being a picture? And how often did you suggest something or just tell them to do something different with their hands and the way they touched it?
I did a lot of directing. Most people needed it, and it was. I felt like it was my responsibility, putting them in that situation, to give them some guidance, because a lot of people didn't know what to do, and they wanted some guidance. And yet there were a few people that would be like, well, how about if I do this? Or that doesn't feel right. And I really appreciated when people told me what they felt, or what they brought something else to it. And that did happen sometimes. And so it was sort of a combination. And I also looked at a lot of imagery of couples together, and from the history of photography, from just watching people, how they touch in a park or wherever in a public space. And so I tried to incorporate that into it too. Yes?
Related to that, did you find that a lot of the subjects wanted to automatically just look at the camera and smile, like more of a snapshot? Because I think what's beautiful about a lot of the imagery is that they have a wonderfully blank expression. Not like there's nothing behind it, but it's not cheesy smile at the camera shot. It's more, it reveals more about them as a person.
That my take on portraiture and smiles is, I feel like when I like to photograph someone when I first saw something in someone, like in public, and most people, unless they're like high, are not smiling, right? You're pretty much in public, you're walking down the street, or you're sitting on the subway or wherever, and you're in this more quiet, just reposed moment. And I think that there's more of a window into that often, into a person when they're there's not, a lot of smiles are put on for the camera, and there's a self-consciousness and an attempt to portray the moment as a certain type of memory. And I don't want that. I want to get beyond that. So it's not to say that there's not wonderful portraits of people where they're smiling, but I think in general, and especially for this work, I discourage that. But with a big view camera, a lot of people don't necessarily, they might start out that way, but because it takes so long to set up an image and focus and do all the bells and whistles, people kind of get a little more relaxed and they kind of ease into it. And then sometimes with the stranger pairing, they ease into each other. So I think that is also at work.
Doug, you had a question?
Have you been able to get the books of the people you took photographs of to those persons? Or have you tried to do that?
I've sent everyone photographs, copies of their picture. Only the people that are on the cover of the book got books, because that is prohibitively. Yes?
What blew me away were your backgrounds. I mean, you have these beautiful, unearthly backgrounds. Would you set up the view camera for the background first and then find the people to put into the spot?
It was definitely a combination of both. Sometimes I would sit like the wall, the picture where it says Superior, like that's a sign on West 26th Street in New York City, or 25th Street, and I've known about it for years, and I always thought that would be a great background. So I went there with the intent to photograph there. Going to Venice Beach, I found my subject first, like the one of Andrew and Ekebong in the Yellow Wall, and I didn't, the wall was just nearby, and I actually photographed them in front of a blue wall first. It didn't work, so I mean, I'm trying things, and I'm seeing sometimes things, and I will walk, and maybe my subjects will walk with me, in sort of a 1 or 2 block radius from where we made the original connection, until I feel like I found the right background, or I'll at least do two different backgrounds. So try and.
Last question.
Okay. I just got a quick question for you in terms of up-and-coming young artists who are going to graduate school. What advice would you have for a controversial artist to get their work published if it deals with subject matter that makes people uncomfortable?
Oh gosh, that's a really tough question. I mean, controversy can always be fuel. So I mean, you could actually use that to your advantage, but I think it's really, really challenging to get work published, and I think you just have to really be more dedicated to the work than anything else, and don't worry about the publishing until really you feel like the work is there and that people are noticing the work, because that's, I think, the most important thing. And I think that there's this notion that you can just do a project in a few days and you're done. And like, I don't think photographers should be viewed necessarily any differently than a writer who takes years to write a book. And I've taken a long time with my projects, like Touching Strangers I did for 7 or 8 years, Fall River Boys for 8 years, and The Bus Travelers for like 5 years. So I think that just being dedicated to the work and giving it the respect that if it deserves is what will be most beneficial to it being seen by more people, whether it's in a gallery or getting published. So.
Thanks, Richard. And thank you all for coming out tonight. I just want to mention that the performance exhibition will be open until 7:30. We also have copies of Touching Strangers available at the bookshop, and Richard would be happy to sign them for you.
It's a
Thank
good
you.
opportunity to get a signed copy.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.